Hello and welcome to BusyWorksBeats.com. We continue the sample series right here at BusyWorksBeats.com/sample. Today we're going to focus on creating one-shots from samples and how to re-sample a sample to then create a unique sound or a unique instrument. So this is pretty high-level stuff. Now you can even go as far as to use RX8 to isolate instruments and do it that way. So that's another additional thing, but we'll just focus in FL. So let's say you like that barrel. Okay, what we're gonna do is just grab the sample, just click the top left, go to channel settings, right click, go to edit in audio editor. And what we need to do is just isolate the barrel or any sound that you want. You might like a snare. You could sample the snare, you know what I mean, if that's what you want. It's actually a pretty cool sample. So and you could just take out this entire thing because you could chop it up later. Okay, so that's a cool little thing. So I just accidentally found that. So that's the cool thing about older records. They just let the sounds breathe. So you would drag that into your channel rack and just save this. Let's, where are we at here? Go to the file icon and actually locate sample, located. Okay, anyway, right click, go to edit in audio editor. So now we have it just as it by itself. That was a bad grammar. Go to save sample as, and then put this, just mark it some type of way. I'll put drums or something like that. So now I have it in my library. If I hit refresh, it should pull up in this library somewhere or wherever it just saved to. Where did it save to? Let's do this again. Save as. Oh, you could save as. I knew there was a button there. You could right click and just save as. Oh, it saved it to the sliced audio. So that's not where I want it to go. I actually want it to be in my track lib folder. I don't want it all the way tucked in that random folder. So let's put it in the track lib folder or whatever folder you want that you use a lot. I'm just going to put it back here and then I'll mark it as drums. So now I know. You see it popped up. So if I ever want to slice that up, I could. So that's the power of the one shot. You know, we're taking out small sections of the song that we can reuse for a different purpose. Let's go back to the original thing and let's right click edit in audio editor. You can even sample the chords. Okay, so let's just do this. I mean, you never know what we can come up with. So let's make sure we're sampling the whole thing. We could always cut out the excess later, but try to sample the entire thing by itself. Now what I have my thing on, the snap to grid here, is snap to zero crossings. That way it doesn't create clicks and pops. And we're gonna drag this to the channel rack. So it's its own thing. And just right click, save as. And then you wanna go back to your folder of choice. In this case, mine is track lib. We'll call this chords or chord. You could even label it like one shot, you know, if you really wanna get organized. So I just want the barrel. Now this one has a lot of sounds in it. It's a sound effect sweep. You have a kick in there and a hi-hat. So this one's a little more tedious, I'll say. But there's ways we can clean it up. So let's grab this drag copy sample selection, drag it over top the Edison tab. So it isolates just the sound. And first, before we sample it, we want to just grab the tail end. I like to create fade outs for things like this because I don't want it to click coming in or out. Left click and just, again, when you're on snap to zero crossings, it figures out the node points and just fade it in so you don't create clicks and pops. And now we can click. I recommend switching this to 16-bit by just clicking this icon to 16 and save it as, and then we're going to save it back in that folder. And in this case, I'll say one shot. So we know what it is, bass. All right, now we have all these individual components. Let's rearrange this stuff to create a little rhythm here. So we have the drums. And what I'll do to kind of save time on the drums is open up Slice X so that it can automatically slice the drums for us. Now to do it, you just go to the Regions tab, go to Auto Slice, hit Medium Auto Slice, and it should do a decent job. In this case, it didn't do the greatest job of finding the transients of the drums so that when I play different keys on the keyboard, it will play different sounds from the drum loop that we sampled. And we could test this by going into the piano roll. just like an MPC or machine would do. Now we can create our own rhythms. Now it's gonna sound very choppy and choppish, but that's the nature of chopping. It just sounds kind of choppy sometimes. You can hear a couple artifacts of musicality in the back. That's not the greatest rhythm. And mainly it's because of those hi-hats. So hi-hats I've found, if you keep the hi-hat in a sample, it makes it seem very like stop and go-ish. It's because the ear's listening to that hi-hat. And if the hi-hat's directly on the downbeat, it sounds very quantized. So to kind of prevent that, I'll use a low pass filter to get rid of the hi-hat for the most part. Now it still sounds 1, 2, 2, 2, 2. It's really, really robotic, but we're not going to obsess about that right now. Remember, we have this one shot from before. Now you can just draw in notes, or you can right click in FL Studio. You can create a direct wave instrument. What this will do is time stretch the one shot across the keyboard. And what is it? You cannot save this document extension M. Okay, this must have been there we go. Because we had a .m in there. Okay, so just keep it on all these settings. Yes, 16-bit, hit start. So it's going to resample it and map it across the keys. I found that FL gets either does it right or does it wrong. So in this case, it did it completely wrong, which is not the sound we're going for. So FL, that function, I'll be honest with you, it's a hit or miss. Another way you could do it is go to Omnisphere. Or I'll show you a different plugin you could use as well. You don't have to use Omnisphere specifically. But let's go to layer A. Let's go to sample. Just showing you different ways you can use one shots. Go to the sample, go to user audio tab. And this is drag. Just click in that window and then find where you last left your sound. So it was in the track lib folder, and then we had it under, we had it as one shot. What did we load up? The chord. Hit open. Oh, you know what? Because of the name, I have to rename it. Okay, so now we know all these small little things. It's only when I make videos do random things like this occur. Okay, so let's take out the periods here. Put AM, no periods. Let's do that. Okay, so it loaded in. You're going to hear it trigger. Okay, so now you can add all the different things in Omnisphere. Envelopes, filters, effects. So I'll just kind of load up a pre-made effects chain. Now the only thing Omnisphere doesn't have, from what I understand, is a way to control how it loops. So it's cool to play it just like, but there's no easy way, at least that I found, where we can have it go, like we can't make it loop. Let me get rid of these drums because they're just old school drums. Let's add some like modern trap drums. And before we do that, let's add that bass. Where's that bass? Did we get rid of it? Did the bass disappear? Ladies and gentlemen, I think the bass disappeared because it's not there. It should be called. Here it is. Let's open that up. Now, another plugin you could use is called CMI by Arturia. Now, this has a couple more functions that you don't have in Omnisphere, from what I understand. Let's see if we can initialize this. Template default. And what we want to do is go to figure out which tab loads the sample. So under control, sound control, we're going to click on this little envelope, folder envelope. And now we are going to find our sounds. Let's go to TrackLib, our folder of choice, and grab that one shot. Okay, so now here's the visual for what's happening. So now this program lets you loop it. If you want to loop it, you could turn the loop off. But you could visually see what's going on. Okay, and you could use the mixer to, I believe this has effects you could use, like, you know, the Leslie effect, phasers, typical stuff, distortion. Okay, so I'm just gonna agree. Okay, so now we have a sound that, like, you're like, where did you get that sound from? And it's just a sample sound. Now you can do a lot more with one shots than just these basic things that I'm doing. Like you can do pitch icon. Let's give mod envelope 1 control over the pitch, for example. You can do cool stuff, like just stuff you can't do with the sample itself. Then you would add modern drums. And these are just sounds you just be like, where'd you get that from? What plugin is that? They're not gonna know. Now you could do, now the easier one shots are gonna be like bells, more synth sounds, as opposed to these more abstract sounds that we pick. But let's add some drums just to give you an idea. So I'm thinking like a Sada Baby type record right now. So you hear that bounce? And they'll be like, oh my gosh, what plugin did you get that from? And now you can tell them it's not a plugin. So hopefully you see the magic. Now, I don't know if this one has filters. Yeah, it does. So you can even downsample in here, which is an interesting thing to do. So if you wanted to do that, just type in 16,000. So we're taking out the high frequencies. So it gives you a unique texture as well. You can even convert it to synthesis. I don't know if this was, well, no, but you could do it if you wanted to. Put a loop on. It tried, but I mean, it doesn't really sound like it. Now, that sounds pretty cool. And now you have a new sound that you, again, where are you going to get this from? Now, I'd probably recommend blending the two. Because I just like the original sound. So you get the concept. That's the power of one shots. So we just touched the surface. You could do it for trap stuff. This is more of a dance vibe, like a Sada Baby vibe. I kind of touched on downsampling, which is the next video. So let's move into the next video on how to downsample to get that, you know, retro drum machine sound that everybody's talking about. So let's get into those secrets next. It's Game from BusyWorksBeats.com.